Hey everyone, welcome to episode 5. This is truly good news because we have a truly good person with us today. Kate Maehr, many of you met Kate about a year and a half ago when she came to Strata. She runs the Greater Chicago Food Depository, and there has never been a more important time really in the history of our city relative to the kind of work that she's doing. So it's a true privilege to have her and to have the opportunity to work with her and her team. It's the Lunchtime to End Hunger this week that you guys have all been participating in, so there's no better time to have Kate join us. So with that, Kate, just wanted to thank you for being with us today.
Oh my gosh, Dan, thank you for having me, and to all of your colleagues. We are so grateful. You guys have been so engaged and just superheroes in this work. So thank you so much to all of the team.
Yeah, well, this is kind of the best of times and the worst of times, as you and I talked about, to be at the food depository. It's hard to see what you're seeing, but it's gratifying to do the work that you're doing. So maybe you can just give a lens to the team about what you're seeing and feeling and hearing. Just give us a little bit of your lens if you can.
Sure, and I'm actually going to start even before the crisis, because I think it's important as we think about the landscape of need that we are seeing today, 7-8 weeks into this crisis, to remember that back when I came and I was with the Strata team, we were serving 800,000 people. And we were doing a booming business. We were meeting ourselves coming and going. And now, through the lens of this COVID-19 crisis, we look back and we recognize that those are actually going to be days that we yearn for and we will think of as the good old days. Today, the need is surging in every part of our community, among every population we serve. We are across the board at the network of food pantries and soup kitchens that get support from the Greater Chicago Food Depository. This week, what we are documenting is that the number of people showing up is about 60% above where we were in January. And I have about 5 asterisks by that number. And as you know, it's really hard for us to get good data in real time. So we have a lot of volunteers making tick marks on pieces of paper, and sometimes those pieces of paper don't get to us in real time. But we see it in a lot of different ways. We see it in the lines at food pantries, but we're also seeing it in the inbound phone calls to our benefit outreach line. And those statistics are actually even more humbling. We have had a 10-fold increase in the number of calls coming into our benefit outreach line. So much so that in the first day, we actually crashed our phone system.
Oh my God. So, I think we've seen images of food lines that are miles long. It's kind of devastating to watch, and it seems like the problem is only going to get worse with the unemployment numbers, what they are. How are you and your team coping with that? So I know you've been working 24/7, so it's a mixed blessing to be in need, certainly in the case of your team. So how are you guys coping with that? How are you working your way through this problem?
That is actually, I think that's a great question, and I want you 6 months from now to ask me that question. I am worried about the impact that the trauma experiences are going to have on everyone on our team, and I think one of the things that we already recognize, one of the young members of our team who takes these inbound phone calls, within the first week, some of the stories that she was hearing, and as she was telling them to me, she was just shaking. To have people call you at their moment of most intense personal pain, and you're the person who hopefully can help them, but sometimes you can't, is an awful big mantle And I know that as an organization, there's more that we need to think about to support the individuals who take those phone calls and who are connecting in the community. But as a rule, I will say, first of all, I work with amazing people. Earlier today, I was walking through the hall and I saw one of our truck drivers. And we were just talking about the fact today was a really big shipping day. And I asked him how he was doing and what the day had been like. And, you know, he started to say, yeah, it was really tough and it was a long day. But then he stopped and he said, you know what? This is what we do. We feed hungry people. And I do think for many of the people who work at the Greater Chicago Food Depository, for many of the volunteers who are coming into the building every day, that this is their calling. They do this because it's what they're meant to do.
Yeah, and Kate, just, I mean, I remember the number used to be 180,000 people per day you were feeding, or that was the number of meals. What is the number now, just to give a size and scale difference?
Well, so let me answer that. So sometimes we talk in meals and sometimes we talk just in pounds, right? So last year we distributed 75 million pounds of food. And a really big day for us would be maybe 300,000 pounds. Today we shipped more food than we have ever shipped in one day in the history of our organization, 504,000 pounds of food and still counting. I don't think we even have all the data in on that yet. And it feels, I feel really conflicted about that. There's a part of me that feels so proud that we can be agile enough of an organization that we can figure out how to get even more food through the pipeline and out into the community. But our dream as an organization, our purpose is not to get bigger. And you've heard me say this so many times. Our intention is to get smaller. Our intention is to have fewer people in line. And so as an organization that thinks about how we ultimately end food insecurity, it weighs on me to have a day like this. We know we need to respond to the emergency, and that's what we're called to do, and we will do it. But we're also thinking about what does the end of the emergency look like, and how do we help transition people to financial security and food security?
Yeah, and you and I have talked a lot about how health and hunger are tied together, you know, and you know, as you look at this and see the level of not just hunger, but the health issue associated with it, I think one of the things that people don't often understand is that you're delivering healthy meals. That's a big part of the change, fresh produce, and really a nutrition prescription. And I think that's one of the things that maybe people didn't quite get, you know, when we initially spoke to you, and then it was revealed, you know, as you kind of walked us through the kind of work that you're doing. Can you just shed a little bit of light on that?
I would love to, and I would also, I'd like to say that some of what I've learned from you and this work is really at the center of our COVID-19 response. So, you know, over the years, we began to understand more clearly that the men and women and children that we were serving were disproportionately affected by diet-related disease. And there were a series of moments where it just became so clear to us that if an individual has diabetes, and part of the challenge of managing that disease is that they don't have access to quality, nutritious food, then it's incumbent upon us to develop that supply chain and help connect that person to food. And that work has really driven a lot of our growth. So we were, in January, we were running more than 40% of our overall distribution was fresh fruits and vegetables. And you know, there's been a moment in this crisis that we've really had to place the emphasis on non-perishable food just because of the emergency nature of the response. But I am proud to say that in that more than 500,000 pounds that went out today was also a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. And interestingly enough, many of our partners in the 2 or 3 weeks when we were having trouble getting fresh produce in through the supply chain were calling us saying, where's our produce? Which to me was a sign that we were really beginning to change behavior.
Yeah.
I am excited about that. What I would say about this intersection of health and hunger that is so important right now in this crisis, you probably heard the mayor a couple of weeks ago when she had her press conference. She talked about the data as it relates to the coronavirus and COVID-19. And once again, there are certain communities, largely African American and Latino communities, that are disproportionately impacted by this disease. And they are the same communities that have been disproportionately impacted by diet-related disease, food insecurity, and ultimately poverty.
Mm-hmm.
For the Food Depository, what that's meant is we're really doubling down on building access points for quality, nutritious food in those communities. And so this week, we launched a series of new programs with community partners to build additional access points. So communities like Austin, Auburn, Gresham, Woodlawn, Washington Park, there's just not enough quality, nutritious food available. And we have to cross that bridge. We have to make sure that we're building a response. We're doing it with community partners, but also bringing in healthcare partners. And so we're having a lot of conversations around all of the pieces that people need to be healthy right now.
Yeah, well, we appreciate, I mean, you know, our mission is to help heal healthcare. And then I think someone on our team came up with, you know, our mission as it applies to you is to help heal hunger. So we appreciate the work you're doing. You mentioned the mayor gave you guys, you know, is collaborating with you, and you're very involved with the city of Chicago. I understand that another public health official, I shouldn't say public health official, that would be the wrong frame, maybe a former community organizer, to say hi to you guys. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wish I could offer up that as a surprise visit today with you, but we were so humbled and overwhelmed. We were contacted by the Obama Foundation, and they were really interested in knowing what we were doing in the community and offering ways to support us. And at one point, you know, when we shared that part of the way that we're operating right now is we are having weekly phone calls for our network, and we use those phone calls as a way of keeping connected, making sure that we're driving information about best practices, being a resource for our partners, but also using it as a chance just to express gratitude. Mm-hmm. And as we were sharing that, they just perked up and they said, well, would you be okay with somebody from the foundation coming onto the call to thank people? And we said, absolutely, we would love that, thinking that it would be a member of the staff. And it was really not until a few minutes before the call when there were lots of extra steps in the security around the Zoom call. And then all of a sudden, President Obama showed up on the computer screen. And I have to tell you, on my screen, I could see the president, and then all around were faces of women and men who run food pantries all across the community, many of whom have been running these organizations probably 30, 40 years. And they would do it whether they were thanked or not. They would do it whether the food depository existed or not. And I saw people beginning to cry when he was thanking them. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the most moving experiences of my life. And it was a reminder that taking the time to recognize and acknowledge people is a really, really powerful, powerful thing.
Yeah, well, in that spirit, I just want to thank and recognize you, Kate, and your team. You've been amazing to work with. I'm wearing my Hackathon to End Hunger shirt.
I love that.
Lucky enough to get deeply involved with you guys through the years, and not only form a partnership, but really a friendship. And, you know, we're just so appreciative of the fact that you're stepping up and in for the community at such an important time. I just think if people realize, you know, we're talking about 300,000 people today were fed in Chicago because of your work and the work of your collective team. So just thank you for everything you're doing, and we'll continue to work for you and support the work that you're doing in your community, in our community.
Dan, I want to correct you on one thing, and that is, we're not doing this. You're doing this too, right? We do this because your amazing colleagues help raise money, help raise awareness, volunteer. It is truly a collective effort. We are fortunate that we are the ones who get to be on the front lines, and we hear the stories and we see the impact, but rest assured, everything we do is because incredible organizations and incredible individuals support us, and you guys are at the top of that list. So thank you for helping us do this work. We are grateful, and we look forward to being with you in person in the future.
Well, that's my quote that I'll take from this is fortunate to be on the front line. I think that's if that doesn't energize everybody, nothing else will. So Kate, thank you for the work that you're doing. We really appreciate it, and we'll keep working.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks. So that was a great visit by Kate. And I also wanted to bring on Dan V. As many of you guys know, Dan has been doing amazing work for years for the company and has been taking the lead on our impact initiatives as a company. So I just thought I would bring Dan on just for a few minutes so he can share what you guys have been doing to help.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jennifer. And I'm really excited to be on the call today. And quite an act to follow after you and Kate's conversation, but I do think we have a pretty amazing story to tell as part of Strata as well. So as you mentioned, we formally launched our Impact Initiatives program a little over a year ago. And the work that the team has done and the impact we've been able to make has really been incredible. But I think one of the pieces of data that I wanted to share this afternoon is in the last 30 days alone, we have delivered over 200,000 meals with our, the work we've done through our food drives and the support from the team. So just want to pause and really think about that for a minute, because that's really an incredible number. And a huge kudos to the 300 plus people on the Strata team that have gone above and beyond to really make that sort of impact possible.
Yeah, people on our team stepping up at a big time when our community really needs it. And I know, Dan, you have a whole platform of initiatives outside the Greater Chicago Food Depository that you and the team have been leading up. But the need is so great right now, and you guys are doing a great job in terms of helping out. In terms of helping out, we mentioned during the interview with Kate, the visit that they had from Barack Obama. Well, he not only visited on Zoom, but also visited in person. And so we thought we would just give you a glimpse of what that looked like. Dan, as we show this, one thing you may notice is that there's a certain baseball team that he's wearing their hat and maybe highlighting them. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that, and that did rub me the wrong way just a little bit. So I want to just make sure we set the record straight of which team should appropriately be represented.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because rest assured, the right team was. Let's take a look.
Hey everybody! I remember when I had a chance to visit the food depository, I was amazed at just how dedicated all the volunteers were, how organized the systems were, and how efficient they were, how much compassion and grace was shown by the people who were doing the work. And so as Michelle and I now are trying to call around the country and thank people and find out how we can be helpful, you guys all immediately came to mind.
So it's probably not a huge surprise that we are seeing record numbers of people showing up at food pantries, many of them for the very first time. We had so many people who were one paycheck away, and now they've lost 10 paychecks, and it will take them months and possibly years to rebuild back to financial stability that will equate with food security. Even as we see the heartbreak and the need, we've also seen incredible resilience. And I think that's reflected in the people who are on the call today. It is the very best of Chicago coming forth at this critical moment.
My husband and I have been running our food pantry for 16 years, and the numbers have constantly been increasing. But over the last couple months, I have seen such a shifting in our clientele. I'm seeing a lot more people who were gainfully employed who are now just at wit's end trying to just feed their families. I'm seeing a lot of elders that are coming and they're just trying to make a choice. Am I going to buy medicine or am I going to buy my food? Our line is up the block, round the corner, and up the next block. And I am just so grateful and thankful that the Food Depository is there to help us and that my volunteers are there to help us. It is just the spirit of Chicago. We're in this thing all together. It's just been such a collaboration and such a partnership.
Are there particular needs that you're still seeing within the network that would make life easier as you do the work that you're doing?
We know that this is just the beginning. And so to the people who are interested in being a part of the response, what I would ask is that they make a promise to not just be part of the response today, but they think about what that looks like this summer, this fall, this winter. We're going to need our neighbors to be there for months and years to come.
The point you're making, I think, is really powerful. This is going to be a tougher challenge. It's going to last a longer time, and we've got to get our minds right and our hearts right in order to make sure that we're there for them over the long haul. So I'm inspired by what all of you are doing. Keep up your faith and your hope, and know that you're doing the kind of work that makes communities stronger and makes the world a better place. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.